Okay, good afternoon. Hello, welcome to the TriathlonDan YouTube channel and welcome to another day of no triathlon training. Welcome, Fran. Fran, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. Some of you guys might remember Fran from over Christmas time when I trained like a pro for about 3 days. Fran came on and gave us all some nutrition tips, so thank you very much. Fran is forgive me if I get this wrong, nutritionist. Is that right?
Yeah.
Basically, Fran knows a lot about and is qualified in what to put in your body in order to manage weight, perform well, all the things you want to do. I'm going to leave all Fran's links down below. If this is something you're interested in, please do check her out. I'm not by any means on a commission or trying to sell her wares. I'm literally a paying customer of Fran and therefore thought it was just worthwhile sharing what sort of thing happens in these sorts of conversations because I've got a lot of work to do and I want to be transparent with you guys as to how that's going to happen. So hope you enjoy some snippets from this chat and get something from it. Feel free to drop any questions down below and Fran will answer them because I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'll be in the comment sections.
Okay, take it away, Fran. What do you want to know?
Cool. Right. So I'm literally just going to go through a consultation as kind of I usually would, I suppose. And I usually start off, and I know you've kind of spent quite a lot of time filling in the consultation form, so thank you, because it's quite long-winded. But just, I know you've put in some time to kind of say what your immediate goals are and your long-term goals are, but it'd be really good just to hear kind of in your own words, what is it that you're hoping to get out of working together and what's kind of, your priorities for the next couple of weeks at least.
Okay. So from this, I'm hoping to learn a bit more about what foods are good for me, both in general health and in terms of fueling for performance, to try and get into better habits because I think a lot of my downfalls nutrition-wise are driven through either boredom or just through poor planning and just habit. So an example of that is I will quite often have a bowl of cereal before bed, and that doesn't mean it's good or bad, but that's sometimes I get to like 9 o'clock and I'm like, oh, it's time for a bowl of cereal. I'm not thinking, oh, am I actually hungry? What training am I doing tomorrow morning? That sort of thing. So I understand that habits take a while to get into, but I really want to break the bad ones and get into good ones. I want to understand my relationship with food a bit more, or a lot more, because, and I won't bore you with this too much, but I think I have a bad relationship with food. So throughout my, when I was a child, teenage years, etc., my weight was up and down. So I think when I was like, and I might have to ask my mum and dad, but when I was a young child, I was quite fat. And then in my early teens, my dad took me to the local running club, and I then became what's probably described as a normal child. I was in the cross country team, like I was just physically a normal child for probably age 12, 13 to about 17, 18. And then when I fled the family nest and was able to make decisions for myself, drank a lot, ate a lot, quickly had a sedentary job and quickly put on a lot of weight. I got up to 20 stone, which was 127 kilos, which was pretty heavy. Then when I was about 22 or 23, decided I need to do something about it, got into triathlon, and the weight came off, slowly. It's not a quick process. But again, those bad habits remained, and I think I just out-trained it. I then, when I was, what was I now, 3 years ago, so 2018, the beginning of 2018, I was 25-ish. That's when I began my plant-based diet. The reasons for that, and that's not something that's going to change, but the reasons for that were partially, environmental and moral, but also partially because of my control issues with food. So I've always struggled with moderation in all aspects of my life. So not just food. I've always been a bit all or nothing. But the one that sort of shoots me in the foot most is with food. And I found that going to a plant-based diet, instead of having a bar of chocolate in the house and me not being able to have 1 or 2 squares, would eat the whole thing. Well, I just wouldn't have that bar of chocolate because it's got dairy in it. And I found that way I was able to get rid of a lot of bad foods. And then I lost a lot of weight that year. And I got down to, at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I was under 80 kilos. And I know that weight isn't everything, but I was at my physical best, I believe. So I was quite light. I was quite active in my life. I was a retained firefighter as well as a day job. So I think I burnt a fair few calories that way. But I was also training very well. I wasn't injured. I was running well. I was cycling well, all those sorts of things. And I wasn't really being restrictive about my diet. Now, 3 or 4 years has passed and the plant-based lifestyle has become more widespread, which is great. But there's Ben and Jerry's, there's Domino's, there's all these things that I'd previously been able to exclude because they weren't plant-based. And for whatever reason, it's nobody else's fault but mine, I haven't been able to get out of those bad habits when they're presented to me. So, example is we had a Domino's last night. Now, I know people have treats every now and again, but I think my treats are too frequent, and they are for the wrong reasons. So that's something I'm definitely looking to do. I think, again, I might have to check on my mum and dad, but like throughout my childhood, we weren't really a family that really had sweets and fizzy pop and things in the house. And I think that then when I was able to do that, like when I went to school and like I had a paper route, I had my money and whatever, I would then perhaps binge on those things because I wasn't allowed any when we were at home. And I think that's just got worse throughout my life. Obviously, when you're then allowed to have these things all the time, I then have no restraint. And then in the last year or so, our lives have changed through COVID. And this is in no way a cry for, oh, my life's so terrible, look at me. A lot of people have a lot worse things. I've been very lucky to be able to work from home. But that's meant that my diet stayed the same, and my weight has gone up because I'm a lot less active. In terms of numbers, I think the beginning of the first lockdown, so sort of March 2019, I was about 81, 82 kilos. I'm now about 90, 91 kilos. So clearly a big increase in weight. I don't think I'm by any means obese, but I can definitely feel it running, cycling, swimming, trying to get in a tri-suit, trying to get in a wetsuit, etc. So I'm aware none of these are quick fixes, but I thought unless I take some actual decisive action, it's not going to change. I've tried having the right from tomorrow diet starts, or I'm not doing this anymore. It might last a few days, it might last a week, and then I can slip back into the old ways. So obviously I need to change something.
Yeah, no, that's really useful. And I think the restrictive mindset that is like shown time and time again in the literature, if you tell someone, it's like if you tell someone you can't press that red button, all they want to do is press that red button, or don't look over there, all they want to do is look over there. The same with food. As soon as you say, I can't have sweet treats from tomorrow, all you want to do from tomorrow is eat sweet treats, and kind of any kind of normal routine with food goes out the window because you're just saying, no, I can't have it. And that's why I think a lot of diets end up failing or lasting a couple of weeks and then the wheels fall off, because you're saying, I can't have that, I can't have this, and it invariably makes you in a couple of weeks time just want all of that, and you probably eat more of those sweet treats than you would have if you just managed to kind of include them in moderation. And I understand what you're saying about you don't feel like you can do that, and it sounds like it's been from when you were quite young, so that is going to take a bit of time to kind of unlearn those thought processes around food and those mindsets. But it's almost switching your mindset from I can't have that because I'm trying to lose weight, I can't have that because of blah blah blah, and almost giving yourself unconditional permission to have all of the foods, but making sure that we focus more on getting your kind of core nutrition right. So your protein at meals, your vegetables, you're making sure you have carbohydrates around your training sessions, all of those things that are going to improve your sports performance. And then within constraints, obviously, because your goal is to lose a bit of weight, it's to improve your sports performance, but still being able to include some of those treats, but in a slightly more controlled manner, rather than just saying, no, can't have those. And then that becomes kind of like a off limits food. And it's so common. Like I would say probably 80% of the people that I work with will say, when they first come to me, will say, oh, I can't have chocolate because I'll just eat it all, or I can't have this because I'll just eat it all. I had one girl that locked all of her sweet foods in like a safe because she was like, I just can't have it. And then however many months down the line now, they're just in the house, not in the safe, and we're all good. And I think the other thing with the amount of training that you're doing is like so your training load is pretty high, so it's 12 to 14 hours is like it normally when you're kind of not injured. And the fact that you're expending so many like calories through training, if you're then not putting in enough proper food, your body is going to crave quick fixes of energy. So it's going to crave the sugar, it's going to crave the cakes, it's going to want to overeat because you are not giving it enough of the kind of nutritious stuff. And that's how you end up not being able to out-train the bad diet, because the training almost gets you into a cycle where you do want those sweet treats, you want the sugar, you want the cakes. So like as we go through this, I think we'll talk more about kind of like the strategy that we'll take, but definitely the overarching like theme will be getting you to eat more proper food, and probably more proper food than you are currently eating, But by doing that and almost trusting in the process and fueling your sessions well, hopefully over time that's going to start to reduce the amount that you feel like you want to eat snacks and the amount you feel that you want to eat Dominoes. And it might be that that if, say, you'd eaten really well all day, you'd fueled your training well, and you get to the evening and you go, let's have Dominoes. Hopefully we'll get to a point where, because you're not starving hungry going into that Dominoes, you might eat half and then save the other half for tomorrow, or you might eat 3/4, or you might eat the whole thing because you've had a 4-hour bike ride that day and you physiologically need a larger chunk of calories for your dinner. I've
often wondered how much of it is like psychological, how much is like motivation. Because I think people watching this might understand that when you step on the scales and you've put a bit of weight on, sometimes I think, oh, what's the point? I've been trying hard and nothing's working, so therefore I'm going to make a bad morning into a bad day, which is then a bad week. And with the habit and opportunity thing, it got bad a couple of weeks ago. I gave Liz my debit card. I took like my Apple Pay off my phone, and she literally has had my card, so I couldn't like go to the shop during the working day and go and pick up a lunchtime snack or something. Works for so long, but then when we start going back to the office and stuff, I need to put fuel in my car. It becomes quite inconvenient. So that's obviously not a permanent fix to not just control your eating by not having any method of payment on you. That's not really a suitable. But that's the desperation where I sort of got to, and that's when I thought, this actually isn't normal. I perhaps need to do something about it.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to spend the rest of your life feeling on edge around food. So this process is about making you feel like you've got control again, because that's the thing. At the moment, it sounds like you feel a bit out of control, and you're trying to do these things like give your debit card, and like you're thinking about food, and when you're talking about it and you're saying, oh, I'm not happy, and it's like this. So we want you just to be like chill with food and it not to control you, and you can not control it, but it can just become part of your life that you don't even have to think about. You don't have to think about talking to a nutritionist because it's just like it's in control.
Part of the control is like I base my life on when I'm training like 12-14 hours a week. I picked up a knee injury a few days ago, so therefore my training's then gone. So then I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen over the next week, 2 weeks if I continue as I am without actually expending that energy?
Yeah, and that's the thing, is if something goes and you can't do all of this training, like I don't want a normal person, but someone that doesn't have any kind of issues around food, their appetite would naturally decrease a little bit. You still need to make sure you're eating enough when you're injured, because your body requires energy for that kind of recovery process. But a normal person would probably, after a couple of days, your appetite would decrease a bit. You might not have your snacks that you'd usually have around training, and your weight would stabilize pretty much. But if you kind of have some control issues around food, you're going to panic, and then often that panic means you will massively restrict, because you go, oh, I'm not expending all the energy, and food equals training and training equals food, and it's all tied up together. So you massively over restrict, and then invariably in a couple of days time or a week's time, your body will be so hungry that you'll start craving all these foods, and you'll probably eat more than if you just ate a sensible amount all the way through and like quite consistently. So it's a boring message, but consistency with your nutrition is going to be like key to helping you kind of sort out your relationship, but also kind of get a bit more of a control over your kind of weight. And it was interesting when you said around like 80 kilos, because I often try and avoid having a specific weight goal, like I need to be at 80 kilos, but for like it's a good ballpark for you because you know that you performed well there. So often if someone came to me and they said, oh, I want to be this arbitrary number, and you say, well, why? And it's like, oh, well, it's a round number, it's 10 kilos less, so yeah, I want to be there. And it's like, you actually might not perform well or feel good or sleep well or train well or anything at that weight. So let's just see how we go. Let's address the kind of issues first, and the weight will just handle itself. And like time and time again, it's let's improve your relationship with food, and the weight just falls off as like a secondary goal, because you're not having these massive influxes of calories where you kind of overeat on foods that that you don't really want to be
That's why I try and think about the two together. Like, yes, I was this weight, but I was also running well, cycling well, feeling good. So I was, if I was, let's say I had a target of 80 kilos and I was 82, but I felt good running, felt good cycling, I wouldn't focus on the number at all, because I'm hitting that I want to. I understand your physiology changes as you get older as well, doesn't it? And like, I'm doing more swimming now than I ever have. So perhaps I'm carrying a bit more muscle upper body. So I'm not too fixed on the number, but I just know that around that ballpark is where my natural, racing or training physiology should be, I think.
Yeah.
I by no means then had I didn't have abs, but I was pretty slim.
Yeah. So I think not necessarily focusing on we need to get to that weight. If the primary focus is let's sort out your relationship with food, so you feel confident, you feel in control, and your training is going well, the weight will handle itself, because you can't, it's a really bad idea. And this is what really frustrates me about, I could probably go on a bit of a rant here, but this is what frustrates me with the industry, is you get someone that's not got the best relationship with food, and you go to a online macro calculator or a nutritionist and you say, I want to lose weight, and they go, okay, let's put you in a calorie deficit and let's diet you. But actually that's just like enhancing the cycle that they're already in. So okay, we'll put you on a really restrictive diet, you'll lose a few kilos, but then what happens if you don't address the kind of underlying issues is they just spiral back up and invariably end up heavier than when you started. Biggest pet peeve of the industry, and it happens a lot.
We love a good rant. They're good for YouTube clips.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'll keep going through your checking, because more things will kind of come out. So moving on to your lifestyle. So in the kind of pre-consultation, it says describe your average weekday. So obviously not being in the office at the moment means that you're pretty like sedentary during the day. But swimming,
I think it's similar when we do back to the office. It's quite sedentary jobs, and just sitting down, but a bit of travel. But so I think the days would stay the same. I think I'm able to do perhaps one more session 2 or 3 times a week because we're at home, like the morning swim or something. But other than that, I think things will stay the same if we're in the office anyway.
Yeah, cool. So the Monday, Wednesday, Friday before you swim, I imagine at the moment, well, you haven't said anything here about eating anything before you swim. Is that a preference or a particular reason?
Honestly, it's getting up like the smallest amount of time before I have to leave the house to go swimming. And also, I have in my mind, I want to lose some weight, therefore I'm not going to eat something. I've only been swimming for between 30 and 40 minutes, relatively easy. So I thought that just a bit of, I don't know if it's right or not, but a little bit of fasted training, I thought, okay, this is going to benefit me, as well as I know that if I was to eat something before the swim, I don't think at the present time I would then change anything about what I'd eat afterwards. So I would almost feel like I'm double fueling.
But that's an assumption. That's not based on fact, is it at all? So this is another kind of common misconception that's huge in endurance, is like fasted training is the best thing ever. And yes, your pros might get some advantage from the different fuel metabolism, but they've got everything else in check. Like they are on it with their nutrition across the rest of the day. And the danger with doing fasted training, especially if you're kind of struggling with overeating later on in the day, is if you see this as like your baseline that you come to, if you start digging yourself like a bit of a hole to begin with in the day in terms of your like where your energy levels are at, you so you dig down, and then it's been shown time and time again, you probably end up eating more later on in the day than if you'd had a snack that was maybe 100, 200 calories, a little bit of carbohydrates, so a banana, some rice cakes, like even an energy gel. And don't worry too much about writing all this down, because I'll completely like write up the notes and stuff. But say you had a couple of 100 calories there, that's probably going to offset you feeling starving, hungry later, really, really craving sugar, and then eating 400 calories worth of biscuits later on in the day. And if you look at it as a day, it like your energy is going to balance out. Whereas if you start almost digging that hole too early on in the day, you are going to feel hungrier later on. And it might be that you still have your same breakfast. That's fine. But it might be that come lunchtime or mid-afternoon, you just don't have that same craving for like a processed snack, or you don't have the extra dessert or whatever it might be later on in the day, just because you physiologically don't feel like you need it. And that's when we start looking at habits and, okay, you don't need dessert every day, and let's like address some of the I'm eating a bowl of cereal just because I'm eating a bowl of cereal kind of mindset.
So I think I like a typical Wednesday for me is a good example of this. And you asked me for previous 3 days, tell me what you've ate, and I did one day and I put the same for the next 2 days, because it probably is similar, but also it made me feel a bit embarrassed writing it down, and a bit like almost like ashamed of what I'm eating, but that is what it is. But I think on like a Wednesday, I'd get up, I'd go for a swim in the morning, I'd then run at lunchtime, so I still had a breakfast after I'd swam, but I'd have swam fasted, run at lunch, and then in the evening I'd either have a little snack before I go for a bike session or bike ride with my friends, or I would not eat anything, and then I would ride, and then I'd get back about 8 o'clock, have a meal, and then at 9, half 9, I'm eating a bowl of cereal again. And the more that question prompted me to think about that, and the amount of times it happened is probably a lot.
Yeah.
That's a good example of that, isn't it? But,
that's a big training day. And if you're digging yourself into a bit of an energy deficit first thing in the morning, you're almost setting yourself up to overeating later on in the day. And a day like Wednesday, like you're active on that day, whether it's an easy swim and an easy run and it's only 30 to 45 minutes, but then when you put all of that together, it's a chunk of training on that day. And if you're not fueling that properly with kind of some good like proper food, so when I'm saying proper food, I mean just things that aren't super processed and things that are actually going to give you energy and help you feel full and keep you satiated, then it's setting you up to overeat, if not that day, because you're probably out training it on that day, but the following days after that. And it's also going to mean that your training the next day will probably suffer if you're really under fueling and not recovering properly from those sessions. I don't know how you find training on a Thursday, but do you ever find that training on a Thursday feels a bit more difficult after a big day on a Wednesday? Or
sometimes it's probably up and down, various weeks, various days. It's hard to, and I might have attributed it to other things. I might have thought, oh well, I'm just tired, or it was a hard bike ride last night. But the more I think about it, it could be for those sorts of reasons.
So Wednesday is definitely a good kind of example of where you would be better off having something small before you, like it could even be a cereal bar. Like I know someone might think, oh, cereal bar, that's not healthy, but actually what you need before that swim is 30 to 40 grams of carbohydrate, just to give your body something to start to kind of metabolize whilst you're doing that swim, to keep your energy levels up, so that you can put a little bit of intensity into that swim. It's not going to sit heavily in your stomach. It's not going to make you feel sick during your swim. And then you can come home afterwards and like have a proper breakfast. So I guess on your food diary, firstly, you have absolutely nothing to be like embarrassed about at all. That sounds like a pretty typical, I don't know, endurance type diet, but there's definitely a few things that I think would help you feel a little bit better. So
I'm happy for you to share what is on there if you want to. I might even put a picture on screen if I can find it again. So
we'll go through each kind of meal. So you said that for breakfast you just have 140 grams of porridge and you maybe sprinkle a bit of protein powder in.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, is it just 140 grams of porridge oats with a bit of protein powder, or do you put anything else in there?
So I put a banana in as well. And again, I'll have that same breakfast like every day, regardless of whether I'm training that day at all or not. So today is a day where I'm not training. I've still had 140 grams of porridge. Now, when I talk to people, they're always like, oh my God, that is a huge amount of porridge. And I've always like laughed and joked about it. But I suppose one of my first questions is that too much porridge to be eating? Whenever I finish it, I don't think, oh, I'm struggling to finish this. But then is that a habit thing? Am I overeating at breakfast? Because I think I've tried it before when I've made like 80 grams of porridge and I never finish it and think, oh, I'm still hungry. So like, I wonder if I'm just just pile in because of the habit. And I'm a bit of a creature of habit. Like I'll park in the same parking spot when I go somewhere. I'll do things in the same way, that sort of thing. Maybe that's a separate issue. It isn't to be dealt with by yourself, but the same sort of thing with breakfast. I just make the same thing. Yeah. So porridge oats, a banana, and then I'll put some like one scoop, which is like a third of a serving of like chocolate protein powder. More than anything, just for the flavour. However, I could have it without it. It's not the end of the world if I was to know what the outcome is.
Yeah, no, because I think actually having a little bit of protein in there is really good. So when you think about a meal that is going to keep you full and satiated, often you are looking at something pretty balanced. So you want some carbohydrates, you want some protein, and you want some fats in there. And when I look at that breakfast, the biggest thing that I'm thinking right now is there's no fat in there, which essentially, if you've got fat in your meal, it takes longer to pass through your stomach, essentially. So your gastric emptying is slowed because fat just slows kind of like the absorption of everything. So that tends to be why sometimes after a higher fat snack or a fattier meal, you feel a bit fuller for a bit longer. And whilst that can be a not nice sensation if you've just eaten the pizza and it makes you feel really, really, really full for ages, you can also use it to your advantage in terms of, so say to that meal, if we added in either some kind of like chia seeds or some seeds or some peanut butter, or I'm trying to think of other slightly fatty foods, or even like using a vegan alternative milk that like has a fat content in as well, that's going to make that meal a lot more satiating.
Yeah.
And it might be that then you actually don't need 140 grams of oats if we kind of like play around with the quantities, because the fat helps you stay a little bit fuller from that meal.
Yeah, so I have a cupboard full of seeds, nuts, all those things you just said. They're there, and they're just not in my habit to go and get.
Yeah, and I think it's just about like almost someone telling you, oh, you could have this and this might help you feel a little bit better, and that might stop you then wanting biscuits mid-morning or eating more like for lunch, for example.
I find I'm a lot better in the mornings. It's the afternoons where I then binge or overeat or catch up or sort of stuff.
Yeah, which
helps being busy, doesn't it? Like generally
yeah.
In the mornings you've got your emails catch up on, people are ringing you, and then in the afternoon all the fires are put out and you sort of take a step back and you're then like, oh, now I'm a bit bored, what shall I eat? Yeah,
and that's totally typical of the whole restricting or not eating enough in the morning and then overeating later on in the day. So like the question about 140 grams of porridge, is that too much? Like how long's a piece of string? It in the right context, it can be perfect. Some people might want more porridge than that. Some people might have less. But say, and this comes back to talking about pre-fueling before swimming as well. Say you take 40 grams out of that. So you have 100 grams of porridge and you add some fats in, and that's going to be a really satiating meal. 40 grams of porridge is about 150 calories and 35 grams of carbs off the top of my head. If you put that before you swim, so kind of almost taking the same and putting it before your swim, that's probably going to help you with your hunger levels, but also give you a bit of fuel before that swim as well, which is probably going to improve your performance, help your blood sugar stay more stable throughout the morning, and hopefully prevent the overeating later on in the day. So yeah, and then I suppose coming on to lunch. So you gave this
tip to me at Christmas.
Did I?
Before you swim, yeah. You said have a little saurine bar or something.
Yes, I did.
And I should have done that and this at Christmas. Well, hindsight.
But yeah, hindsight. And also sometimes if someone just tells you you should do this, and I'll put my hands up, I am guilty of this because I'm giving you all this information and I still find it hard to apply to myself. It's not until you've got the external accountability that it's a lot easier to kind of actually stick to it, because you're having to check in. You've got someone there saying, have you done it? How's it made you feel? Like, and actually getting you to do it. So we'll go on to lunch. And is that your lunch is a couple of snack. So a couple of slices of toast as a snack.
So I'll either mid-morning or either go downstairs for some sort of snack or something, which is normally, what we've got, a bag of crisps or slice of toast or something. But if I don't do that, I find myself like when I go for lunch, I'm quite hungry, and then it sounds really childish saying it, but as I'm like getting like beans out, putting them in the microwave, I'll put a couple of slices of toast in, and I'll eat those, and then have beans on toast.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm certainly having a lot of bread, but that could be replaced by anything, and I would still do the same thing. So I'd still feel like, for example, I get like vegan replacement cheese, and it's like made of like coconut oil or whatever. But like I'll perhaps slice them up, put it in the beans. But as I'm doing it, I'm like, one for me, one for the bowl, and you know, that sort of thing. So it's almost like it's never just a lunch. There's always more around it whilst I'm making it.
Yeah, and that again goes to show if you are super hungry by the time you get to lunch. So say you decide to skip your morning snack because you're trying to be good, you're still going to eat, and probably a little bit more come lunch, come later on in the day, because you're kind of already super hungry. So
2 or 3 times a week, that will have been, I'll have gone breakfast, morning, gone out for a run, and then when I've come back from a run, had lunch.
Yeah, which is probably going to make you feel even more hungry when you get back from the run. So I think that snack, especially if you're going out for a run, again, you want something that's going to fuel you for that run. So it might be on a run day, you choose a snack that is more kind of based around carbohydrates. So whether that's a piece of toast, but again, rather than just having plain toast, let's try and make it into a bit more of a satiating snack, because toast is, well, I don't know about you, but I could just eat toast and then still feel hungry afterwards. So whether that's you're having toast with peanut butter, or like, and this completely depends the sorts of things you like, or a crumpet with some cream cheese and jam, or whether it's kind of like a cereal bar, or like whatever it is, let's try and make it into a little bit more of a thing than just a piece of toast. And I know that sounds counterproductive with your weight loss goals, but it's not, because it is going to help you balance your hunger across the day, and probably feel a little bit better on that run as well, make you feel a little bit less hungry at lunchtime.
Sometimes I'm literally just thinking, God, I'm starving.
Yeah.
And some of it is, I know we previously discussed, I don't want to do into it, but some of it is like toilet routines through normal runs, but I'm pretty sure I can deal with a small snack in the morning and still be okay to run.
Yeah, and again, I know you've spoken on your channel about kind of like needing the loo when you're out on a run. It might be that having, and again, this is something else to look at with your breakfast, oats are pretty fibrous, and they are, well, I've definitely had experience, and I know other clients have as well, eat too many of them, and that causes you to need the toilet. And it could be that kind of almost sitting slightly heavier in your stomach, or oats, whatever it is, might kind of mean that you do need the loo kind of when it comes to running. So again, that's another kind of consideration to look at. But yeah, in terms of snack, just making it a little bit more, so focus on carbohydrates, but making it a bit more. So rather than just having a banana, maybe having a banana and a handful of nuts, make it kind of like a proper snack rather than just something that you almost still feel hungry after. And then potentially on the days where you're not going for a run, still staying in that same habit of having a morning snack, because like I said at the beginning, consistency and eating frequently and keeping your routine, but maybe it doesn't have to be as focused on carbohydrates. So it might be that you have, I don't know, a bowl of yogurt and some berries, or
a piece of fruit or something, like an apple, or
an apple, or like a handful of nuts, or like whatever it might be. But it doesn't have to be so focused on carbs to help.
That still helps my little habit thing, because it's as simple as you just said. Oh, if I'm running at lunch, I'm going to have a crumpet with peanut butter on. If I'm not running, I'm going to have an apple. Like that. That's something it's easy to process, isn't it? And then you're not having to make a decision. Like, I know that what I'm having on certain days. So that's the other thing, isn't it? Walking into the kitchen, not having a plan, and just making decisions on the spot normally ends up in being a bad decision.
Yeah, and walking into the kitchen hungry and having to make a decision on the spot and going, what have we got in the house? And with all of this, like, and the reason I said you really don't have to feel like embarrassed or anything, and like I like thinking of it like that. It's your physiology. It's not you that's going, oh, I'm greedy, so I'm going to eat this, or oh, I'm like, this is who I am. I overeat at lunchtime. It's your physiology, because you're not eating enough earlier in the day, and because you've not got that consistency of your nutrition. Your physiology is going, Dan, we are hungry. Go and get some food, and get me food quickly. And it's driving you to do it. So almost being able to separate the two things, and almost not taking it personally, because it is your body that's driving you to kind of overeat.
I can't wait to use that line. I'm like 3 pizzas in. It's not me, it's my physiology.
There's a line where, but the thing is if you're going to say it's my physiology, you also have to check yourself and go, well, am I actually hungry? Or am I eating this for other reasons? Am I trying to avoid an emotion, or am I trying to avoid a situation, or am I trying to procrastinate from work? Or like, there's a whole load of psychology that if you're going to use it's my physiology, you also have to be pretty in tune with yourself and go, but am I actually hungry?
Yeah, I always find it quite easy to justify to myself. Like if I'm on the Wednesday example, I'll have tea, then an hour later I want a bowl of cereal. I'll just think, oh well, I did have a hard bike ride. It was a couple of hours, and therefore, yeah, I need this. Whereas actually, if I understood roughly what amount of calories I needed to eat in a day, and if I knew that I'd already done that, I could think, no, hang on, you're not actually hungry. You don't need that because you've had this and this. It'd be easier to say no, I think, but because I don't know, I always think, well, I'm hungry, so therefore I must definitely need it.
Yeah. And do you know what? It's an interesting example, because you might need it on that Wednesday.
Yeah.
That Wednesday, you've done 3 sessions, you've done a lot of activity, and your requirements for that day might be higher. So you might actually, in your head, think, oh, it's such a bad thing that I'm having a bowl of cereal before bed. But you might actually need it because you've done so much throughout the day. So
the point is not knowing, is it? It's an uninformed guess.
Yeah, uninformed. And I guess after we'll kind of go through the rest of your meals, and then we'll come on to talk about which method is going to be better, because I've got clients that do a bit of tracking, so they keep kind of track of their calories, and we talk about calorie ranges and kind of goals for that. I've got clients that do completely habit-based things, so I'll give them a meal structure, and it's like at breakfast you need to have a meal that consists of this sort of thing, and I'll give some examples, and then snack that consists of this sort of thing, and you almost are ticking off habits rather than actually having to put it into MyFitnessPal, for example. And then I've got people that do a blend of both, so we might track for 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get a baseline of where you're at, and then work on kind of transitioning away from that, but keeping those lessons that you've learned through tracking. So yeah, we'll come on to talk about that in a second, and what might suit you best. But yeah, looking at lunch, is that pretty similar most days?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, again, creature of habit. That'll probably be Monday to Friday lunch, definitely.
Yeah.
And the weekend doesn't really change much, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Maybe if I'm cycling, if I go to a cafe, beans on toast, just pay £4 for it rather than 50p.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's a good meal, especially kind of plant-based. You've got a good amount of protein. Do you have a whole tin of beans?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a whole tin's 30 odd grams of protein. So actually, the same as a chicken breast. Like, so you can get your protein being vegan and plant-based.
It's not an excuse anymore, is it? Like, there's so many ways you can.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good meal because you've got some carbohydrates from the toast, you've got the beans, which are protein and carbs, and you've got the vegan cheese, which is kind of like a source of fat. So it's a good meal. The only thing I would probably say is it's probably lacking in a bit of veg or something that is going to keep you a little bit fuller.
So some days Liz will quite often have made, like, done a load of jacket potatoes in the air fryer, and they'll be in the fridge, and I'll push them to the side to get the butter out to go to the toast, and I should perhaps pick the potato up.
Yeah, and something like a potato, and even just varying it as well, because that's the other thing. If you eat the same thing every single day, your diet ends up being very samey most days, and the benefits of eating a really varied diet is really good for your gut health. So the more variety you can get, the better it is for your gut bacteria. So the better your digestion is going to be, the better you're going to be able to kind of like absorb vitamins and minerals and that sort of thing. You definitely get your kind of range of vitamins and minerals, so you don't have to worry about supplementing anything, and you're going to make sure that you kind of hit that range if you're having a wider variety of food. And it's better for satiation as well. So if you think about that bowl of porridge, how often do you actually pay attention to what you're eating? Do you just like mechanically eat it? Versus if someone put a plate of pancakes in front of you, vegan pancakes with, I don't know, some yogurt and berries on them, you would probably think about what you're eating a hell of a lot more than if you were just kind of eating porridge because it's a habit.
Yeah.
So there's
interesting. So we've got like bags in the freezer of just, you know, little 1 portion microwave bags, 2 minutes, bang, of veg. And I always look and think I should use that. My cycling coach has lost a fair bit of weight over the last few months, and he attributes some of it to he's committed to having broccoli with every meal, like all the time. And I like took the piss. I basically was like, what the hell, man? Like and he's putting a picture of everything's got broccoli in. But just getting into those habits of having, you know, expand wider to, you know, more veg and having, you know, different things, different meals. And
yeah, no, definitely. And it's going to help you feel a bit fuller as well. So you might not get to mid-afternoon. And again, coming on to mid-afternoon snack, really similar thing to before. If you're going for a bike ride, especially if it's going to be a long bike ride, yeah, you probably need some carbohydrates before you go and do that, because you're going to be, especially if you're doing kind of like a chain gang or you're going out with a group, you want to have that that fuel to be able to perform at the higher intensities. Because if you go in like hungry, you're not going to be able to switch into that higher gear. If someone surges, if you're going up a hill, you're not going to be able to access your true power if you're underfueled in those situations. So yeah, in that situation, before you go out on a bike ride, a bowl of cereal actually might be a really good choice. But if you're doing, I don't know, an hour zone 2, classic Zwift ride, then you might need something a little bit less. Or if you're not doing any training that evening, you might still have a snack to keep that habit and to keep that routine, but it doesn't have to be as focused on carbohydrates, and it doesn't have to be kind of as performance focused.
I think that's definitely something similar to the lunchtime run morning snack relationship. That's something I need to think about and get into a habit of as well. Yeah, for exactly how you just said.
Yeah.
And give away other training tips. People don't know about 1 hour zone 2, you know.
Oh, sorry. What are they doing watching the channel if they don't know about 1 hour zone 2?
Exactly.
Because yeah, the other thing is if you're riding, so those evening sessions, and it's probably worth talking about weekends as well, but those evening sessions, if they are kind of pushing on over an hour and a half, 2 hours, you probably want to be having something on the bike as well.
Yeah.
And again, whilst that might seem counterproductive, it's going to benefit your performance during. You're going to be able to access those higher powers. You're going to be able to keep up with the group. And actually, by doing that, you're probably going to be expending more energy in that training session anyway. But also, it's going to stop you from, when you get home, feeling like you could literally fall into anything and engulf it and not even realize that you've eaten food. And like, I'll often do it if I know I've got a cafe stop, often like 45 minutes before the cafe stop, I'll have a gel, because I know that then when I get to the cafe stop, I'm not literally just sat there going, give me food, I'm going to eat anything. I'm able to make a decision based on how long I've got left of the ride and how far away from home I am, and all those things that are like a sensible nutrition decision, rather than, yeah, give me 2 slices of cake because I need it sort of decision. Yeah. So I don't how long are those rides in the evening?
So generally on like either Monday's not an easier ride, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours. Wednesday and Friday between an hour and 45, 2 hours, normally pretty hard, but I will always take some carb mix with me, depending on the temperature, 1 or 2 bottles. In each bottle is probably 40 grams of carbs, and I'll go through that most sessions, and I find that I have that, but then sometimes, so we meet in a car park, as most club riders do, I'll stand in the car park before we set off. I'll have either a gel or some like high five gummies or Cliff blocks, and again, some of that is just habit of me thinking, oh, I need to get this in me before we go out because I'm going to get absolutely pasted on this ride, which is generally true. But so I don't know whether that's something I need to fuel or do every time, or whether the bottles are or enough. I guess a lot of it depends on how much I drink, but I'll always fuel during the ride, but probably not. If I was in a race of the same distance, I'd be taking more on during a race. I'd probably say I'd do 40 to 50 grams of carbs for a 2-hour ride.
For the whole ride?
Yeah, probably. I mean,
Yeah.
last week when it was really hot, I drank 2 bottles, so I drank more carbs, but that wasn't through me trying to fuel more. That was just through me being thirsty and sweating like I don't know what. So maybe that's something I need to look to increase during the ride, because then again, and I haven't analysed it in detail, but there are often times where I then come back from the ride, have the evening meal, and then have something else before bed.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because I know you say, oh, I have 40-50 grams in kind of a 2-hour ride, and to a lot of people you go, yeah, that sounds about right. But if you're looking from a completely performance focused kind of analysis of that, especially if you're doing a race and your goal is performance and solely performance, you're not doing a race to lose weight, let's be honest. The training might assist with that, but your race, you want performance. Up to kind of 60 grams of carbs an hour is going to be kind of your optimal like fueling. Well, 60, and then if you can tolerate it, maybe a little bit more, which is 120 grams for a 2-hour ride. And that's going to kind of physiologically fuel you most optimally for kind of performing in that situation. So then if you now think about 40 grams over a 2-hour ride, that's 20 grams of carbs an hour. It suddenly sounds like a lot less than what is kind of optimal for performance.
My thought process is some of the ride's dead easy, some of it's really hard. So I always finished a ride thinking I fueled enough during that ride. Like my performance wasn't hampered because I didn't take on more. Yeah. However, I don't know that because I haven't tried fueling it more. And then when I'm getting home, if that's meaning I'm eating more because of that, well, surely I think what you're leading to, surely I'm better eating more during the ride and then less afterwards, which might lead to better performance, but at the very least it'll mean to me eating at a better time because it's more used.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just touching again on your point of having the gummies and the gel just before you go, if we're getting that afternoon snack, right? So if that bowl of cereal, if we're actually looking at that and going, right, we're going out for a hard ride, let's make this a proper meal. It might be a bowl of cereal, a handful of nuts and a banana, rather than just a bowl of cereal that's not going to keep you full for very long, or at least a cereal that is got a little bit more to it. So I don't know what cereal you have, but say you're having crunchy nut cornflakes, that's pretty sugary and it's not going to keep you very full for very long. But if you look at something like mini Weetabix or some kind of granola or muesli, obviously gut depending, like if you can tolerate it, with a banana, that's going to keep you fuller and fueled for kind of a longer period of time.
It's funny you should say that. Crunchy nut is exactly the
is it actually?
Yeah. I mean, I went on from Choco Shreddies thinking I was eating something a bit better.
Well, do you know what? I think chocolate shreddies are probably better than, and this is coming, but with the choco shreddies, you've got cocoa powder and a bit of sugar in that chocolate coating, but the actual shreddy is like, it's wheat based and it's got a little bit more fiber to it than something like a crunchy nut cornflake. So it's probably actually going to keep you fuller for longer. I used to eat shreddies all of the time before I used to train. That's reminded me.
Yeah. Or Cocoa Pops.
Yeah, but again, Cocoa Pops are probably like they've probably got a bit less to them than something like a Shreddy or a mini Weetabix, a mini or normal Weetabix. It doesn't have to be mini.
Yeah.
I just like the mini ones.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, if you're getting that snack right, then you shouldn't need to be having a gel before you go. But you might want to be having a gel at 45 minutes and then another gel at 1:20, and then potentially even one at 1:40 and then finishing. So having kind of 2 to 3 gels throughout that group ride, or it doesn't have to be a gel. So a gel has 30 grams of carbohydrate, but so does a cereal bar, a mini bit of Serene, a banana, like any of the energy bars that you have. Like, it doesn't have to be a gel, depending on preference. And I think for some of your longer weekend rides, you're probably better not having gels for the whole thing. You might do a couple of gels, but you are probably better off getting some flapjack bites or like some Serene loaf or some, I'm trying to think of even like jelly babies and that sort of thing, and actually having a little bit more of variety in terms of what you're eating. Because the other thing,
I've got some Cliff bars, or what else have we got? Maybe like a Belvita bar or something like that.
Yeah, that sort of thing is generally going to make you also psychologically. So when you, and this is when you look at like liquid calories versus solid calories, when you drink your calories, your body registers that you're taking on energy, but it doesn't necessarily register that like you're eating and therefore fueling and therefore satisfying that part of your brain that wants to eat. Whereas when you actually eat something solidly, it like the signals that that's going to send to your stomach and to your brain is, I have eaten something, which is going to help you feel a lot less like you want to eat a lot when you get home, or when you get to a cafe stop, or like whenever the next point is that you're going to eat. It's just, that little bit more kind of satiating. So without risking kind of just rambling on for too long at you, because I know this is a lot of...
No, so good then.
Yeah, and that's why I said, like, I will write all of this up into like feedback notes. It'll probably be quite a few pages long that you can then like refer back to. But I suppose, having heard me talk about the different strategies, so those kind of either tracking or non-tracking approaches, do you already have in your mind you want to track, or are you pretty open, or do you have any kind of thoughts around either or?
So tracking like scares me, because it worries me writing it down and feeling how I said I felt earlier when I did that initial food diary. I don't currently track, and I think if I'm going to make meaningful and that impactful change, I need to do something different to what I'm normally doing. And I think the tracking helps with the accountability. I think I need to think about nutrition as more like training, because if I think about cycling, running, swimming, I track it all, analyze it all, reflect on it all, and I'm not doing that about food. So I think writing it down and tracking it would help you and I understand exactly what's happening. My question is, so I'd like to track it. My question is, how do you want me to do so? And then I think I need to record everything, so I get a good idea of let's say calories and macros and whatever else, what other buzzwords you use. But also I wondered about, at the minute I weigh myself most days. Is that something you think is useful or not? Should I be doing it weekly, daily, and whatever? So, but food tracking first, if you're happy for me to do so, I think that's the best thing for me to do. My natural instinct is to think, no, I don't want to do that, but I think I need to push myself out of my comfort zone and do it.
Yeah, and I think if you want to, and you're kind of prepared to, go through that like learning experience, it could be really useful and pretty informative, because we can then look back, and if you kind of commit to going, okay, even if I have a shit day and I eat more than I want to, if I'm going to put it in, then on either the day or whenever you check in with me, we can go through that and go, right, okay, so in the evening you had 2 bowls of cereal and you felt like you were a bit out of control and you're really hungry. Now let's look at what you had earlier on that day. Let's look at the training you did that day, and actually let's look at the day before as well. And if there were gaps, that we can go, right, so actually we didn't fuel enough that morning, or the day before we did a ton of training and probably didn't eat enough. That's why I felt hungry then. And it's very objective, and it kind of takes that subjective feeling of either guilt or, I shouldn't have eaten that, or now I feel really rubbish and I'm going to self-sabotage for the next couple of days because I feel rubbish about that kind of episode. If we can actually look at it like objectively.
I'm looking at a wall in front of me. So I started writing for a while. I'll show you. I started writing my weight down every day, and then a little bit of a comment next to it. It's just a lot of silly things like Monday 29th of March, 0.8 kilo to go in 6 days. Tuesday 30th, third of a kilo down, half a kilo to go. Just little things like that. One here, need to keep focused, blah, blah. Just little things like that help me stay motivated. Obviously, it only worked for a week and a half, 2 weeks, as per most things I've tried to do with this. But I think that actual process makes me think about it for the amount of time that I'm writing it and when I'm logging it, rather than actually just dismissing it.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting you say, like everything I've tried has only lasted for a week and a half. Diet, it lasts and then it falls off. But if you look at your training, that has lasted years and years and years. with consistency, and it's because you found something that works.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do it, and you can have consistency, and you can have that structure for long periods of time and enjoy the process. But I think where you've probably been going wrong with the nutrition stuff is you've not found a process that is subjective and like informed and sustainable.
If
So
I can measure food in watts, I'll be all over it. Yeah.
Today you need to eat 3,000 watts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think tracking is a good idea. If and again, it doesn't have to be forever. So what we can do is we can do a couple of weeks, and then we can check in and like with how you're feeling with it. And then eventually down the line, we can maybe go, right, we've pretty much got this nailed now. You know how much you need to eat. You know how it feels to eat this amount of calories. Now let's go, right, we actually don't have to track everything, and we can actually take a step away. And the other thing with tracking is it doesn't have to be perfect. So for example, if Liz has cooked you something and you don't know exactly what's in it, your best guess is fine, because most nutrition labels are not completely accurate anyway. So tracking it's one of those things that people love to think of it as an exact science, but it's not. Just getting something down and some kind of data to represent what you had is good.
And that's one of the reasons why I started MyFitnessPal, but then I quickly went away from it because I didn't know how to. Oh, well, I've made something that isn't from a packet. How do I measure that? And I think, oh, there's too much. You know, you're trying to log everything else, and you do everything else you are in life. I'm thinking, oh, I haven't got time to work all this out. Then I don't log it at all. But yeah, I think even just writing it down, like a lasagna, we can estimate roughly how many calories are in what portion of lasagna. Yeah, okay.
And even like, I'd say to someone that if you really didn't know what was in, go and find, probably if it's home cooked, go and find a supermarket, like ready meal version, and it's probably similar. If you've used similar ingredients, it's probably going to be a similar-ish amount of calories. And yeah, your best guess is better than nothing.
And you know if it's a good meal or not. If somebody says, oh, I've had burger and chips, if I say I've had a lentil chili, well, you're not going to be too concerned about how many lentils did you have. It's more about, is it the right sort of food. What is motivating about MyFitnessPal, when I look on it, back in 2012 and 2013, I must have used it when I first started like trying to lose weight, and seeing that weight like up there, and then me thinking I'm in a really bad place down here does just make me think, actually, I'm not in a terrible place. However, it's the same feeling at both points. So I've got that entry of 127 kilos for 2 or 3 days back in 2013, and that is like, I never want to get back to that. And I think that's my underlying worry, is that if this gets bad and if I stop training and don't understand these things, I will be that person again. And I can't be like, I was buying, like 42-inch waist trousers, for goodness sake. Like I cannot go back to that, because I chucked all the clothes away. I'm not buying anymore. So. Yeah.
And I think for anyone that's been in a larger body, it's the biggest fear, isn't it? Getting back to that, especially when you know how not happy you were kind of at that size.
Like, I'm not going to train in 12, 14 hours a week for triathlon all my life. I'm hoping to retire about 40 and just play golf. But,
But exactly, like the more you get a handle on kind of your relationship with food now, the more that in the future, when your training changes and when your activity level changes, like by engaging with and being in touch almost with what your body needs, and it sounds really like airy fairy, doesn't it? I'll be in touch with yourself, but literally being in touch with what your body needs. Your body doesn't want you to be where you were before, quite clearly, otherwise you wouldn't have lost kind of considerable amount of weight.
My other worry is that what I do rubs off on Liz. So like last night, she was like, what should we have for tea? So she'll meal plan for the week. We've got, I can't remember what it was, something that I thought, oh, that sounds a bit healthy. And I was like, oh, should we get a pizza? And then she's then led by me, I'll go on then, because it saves her having to cook that meal. And that's, I'm conscious that if I change how I'm eating and what I'm doing, that's only going to positively impact her as well, because, logistically we're eating the same thing in the evenings because you're not cooking 2 different meals, are you?
Yeah. And absolutely, like almost having that slight accountability. So it's probably for you to have a conversation with Liz that go, especially once I've sent you through kind of everything written out, show her it and go, this is what I'm going to try and do. I think it would be really cool if like you helped me with some of these meals, or like can we kind of do this almost together, but like you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing, sort of thing. But and having that bit of accountability at home, because it's all very well checking in with me every week and then kind of whenever throughout the week, but I'm not there with you in the moment. And it might be that if you next time say let's get a Domino's, Liz might be like, actually,
look on your calendar, you've got 8 weeks until whatever, are you sure that's the best thing for you to do? Yeah.
And that does that fit with your goals? And don't get me wrong, sometimes it might. Sometimes you might have had a huge training day, you've not quite eaten enough, and you go, actually, I can fit 1,000 calories of pizza into my diet, and it's probably not going to be very often. But like, hopefully you'll get to a point where you can share a pizza. You can get a large Domino's pizza and you and Liz can have half each. And that's, I don't actually know off the top of my head, maybe 700, 800 calories. And that fits, and it's within your calorie requirements for the day. And you know that it's in your calorie requirements. You know you haven't gone off the scale. So you don't feel any guilt about it. You just enjoy it. Versus kind of where you're at now, which is almost like that guilt around a Domino's, because you have no idea almost where your diet's at and what you've eaten. So regardless of whether you like that fit your calories for the day, you're going to feel guilty because you associate Domino's with being unhealthy and a treat and something that's not good for you.
Okay, so I'm all right in saying that we're going to start off by starting to create better habits, but keeping a diary which will help us understand exactly how many calories and of what type I'm eating, monitor the weight throughout, and then just see how it goes initially, because I think I don't know for the last week exactly what energy I've expended and then what I've weighed. So is that the plan for the first week or two? Or
I think I will, and again, I'm happy to kind of come up with a different way of doing things, but how I probably would have or how I would suggest is I'll go away and actually, whilst I'm watching Leeds this afternoon, we'll write up your plan so I can have that to you by this evening, so you can start to think about things. And I'll give you a target for kind of where I would like you to aim for your calories to be this week, and there'll be a range. So it's not going to be you have to hit 3,100 on the dot every single day. It'll be a range of 100 calories or so.
Got it.
So I'll give you a starting point target, whereby I just want to see some consistency. Essentially, I would just like to see you hitting the same amount in a range of calories kind of day on day for the next week until we check in next weekend. And I'll also give you some structure around the different meal times. So for example, before you swim, this is a list of the different snacks that would be right. Pick something that's about 100 to 200 calories from this list. And then breakfast, okay, you can continue to have your breakfast, but let's try and add a fat source in there. And if you want to try something other than porridge, here's a couple of examples. And then you can go and track that into MyFitnessPal and make sure it kind of fits within your daily requirements. And again, the same for each meal and snack. I'll give you if you're going to run at lunchtime, make sure your snack is something like this. And if you're not going to run, have something like this. And I think I'm trying to...
I can't see me, to throw a spanner, I can't see me doing any training this week. I might be doing some like upper body swim band work, but I'm going to just try and complete rest my knee. So it might be different this week for then ongoing. But if that changes, I'll let you know. But plan it as if I'm not doing like a huge amount of physical training. I'll probably still do half an hour a day of like core workouts, swim bands or something like that for my own sanity. But other than that, I don't think there's going to be any cycling.
So are you swimming this week?
I don't know yet, because I'm trying to just keep my knee as stationary as I can. And I went on Saturday and I was, when you turn it at the end, like in the deep end, I could keep my legs straight, turn around, push off with my good leg and keep swimming and just dangle them and not kick. But in the shallow end, I was kicking people and stuff. So, so I don't know. I'm hoping to be swimming back by midweek to end week, but
Okay.
It's just so early. I had an X-ray yesterday, and the nurse couldn't see any fractures, but she's going to go. And I basically fell off a bike last weekend.
Yeah.
Somebody else is looking at it on Monday. Is going to give me a ring if they see anything. So it could change. I could be in a boot by the end of the week, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. With all of that, just keep me really in the loop, and I'll start. So when I write everything, I will write if you're training this.
Or it'll be a small amount. Either way, even if my knee gets loads better in the next couple of days, it'll be a small amount of low intensity.
So I think let's start off with, I will probably write a plan for both. So I'll write your plan for this week, or the next couple of weeks with low intensity stuff, and then once we're back into full training, this is what you do.
I can begin to understand it, can't I?
Yeah, get your head around it, and then we can kind of revisit it. So yeah, no, that's actually really useful, because it's also going to be pretty useful for you, I think, to do your nutrition properly without almost relating training to nutrition.
Yeah.
So just because you're going to be not training as hard does not mean that you don't need enough calories to at least like keep you going, keep your brain function, like help you recover, help you heal, and all of those sorts of things. So yeah, we'll start off assuming that you're just going to be doing kind of like half an hour of movement a day, and then as we go into training, we'll start to add calories in to support that training as well. But
isn't it cool that we think half an hour of like low intensity is like pathetic? It's like nothing, when like a lot of the population like don't do that.
Are you even an athlete?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but it is exactly that. It's still something, and you still require energy, like regardless. So yeah,
I'm gonna try and do 10 press-ups by the end of the week. That's my challenge.
That's a good challenge.
I can do 2, I think, at the minute.
I'm not sure I can do 10 full press-ups. I've not tried for a long time, to be fair.
You've left that life behind.
Yeah, I have. It's really sad. I go into the gym and I'm just not strong anymore.
Get me on the watt bike.
Literally, exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, that'll give you a good kind of like starting point for this week. We can see, and again, when it comes to weighing yourself, I don't think you need to weigh yourself every day, but I do think more than once a week is beneficial, because if you go once a week, you do risk losing some of the nuance from like daily fluctuations, because your weight does change based on like inflammation from training, based on how much you've got in your gut, based on like your toilet habits, based on how much you've drunk, like so many things.
I've got the fancy scales that you take your socks off, and they pass like the Garmin index things that they'll sort of calculate your body fat and stuff. I don't know how accurate they are, but at least they're consistent.
Yeah.
So some days when I'm like heavier, it shows me I've got a higher water percentage, or or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So I think maybe weighing yourself on,
and it all goes to Garmin Connect and Training Peaks straight away.
the days that you're not swimming early morning. Because the other thing is, if you weigh yourself at 6 a.m. in the morning and then weigh yourself at 8 a.m. in the morning, you're going to be lighter at 8 a.m. in the morning if you've not eaten anything. Because you've got an extra 2 hours of losing sweat, water vapor, all of those sorts of things.
I'll stay in bed till lunchtime, then weigh myself in.
Yeah. Well, on it, like if you ever want a low weigh-in, that's the thing to do. Have a couple of drinks the day before so you dehydrate, and then stay in bed. You'll be light as a feather. You'll be 80 kilos.
Great. Come on, Zwift racing.
But yeah, so I think, is that Tuesday,
Thursday,
Thursdays, and then a day at the weekend, because that also gives us enough data to kind of see a trend, but isn't like super taxing on you.
I found that weighing myself every day was good for not worrying about it too much, because of that reason. It's just a higher day or a lower day. But then because of that, I almost didn't care any day, which then it's just meant I didn't care. And it's just
and it creeps up invariably. So and it's actually really interesting if you look at any of the science on weighing yourself. There's a lot of nuance, because obviously some people struggle more with their relationship with the scale and weight and that sort of thing. But in the main, people that weigh themselves more regularly have better control of their weight and of their kind of intake than those that just don't weigh themselves at all. Because you get that data point that gives you feedback, and then you, like you should, or not should, most people will then change how they eat in accordance if you have a really high weigh-in and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's just like the literature side. Actually, if you can emotionally detach from the scale, it's good to weigh yourself a couple of times a week, sort of thing. But yeah, you definitely don't need to do it daily. So yeah, I know I've spoken a lot, and you can probably go and watch back the recording to if there's anything you've kind of missed, and I'm going to try and capture all this in like your feedback notes. But is there anything off the top of your head that you want to ask, or you're not clear on, or you think that we haven't covered that would be useful to cover?
I don't think so. I'm hoping that we'll uncover problems and perhaps things that I might be doing well over the next few weeks, and I'm excited to find those things and also share them on the channel and deal with it ourselves. So no, I don't think so. Thank you very much for your time. This is a weekend we're recording this for the viewers' benefit. So Fran, thank you very much. And Fran is just off now to pick her new bike up. So you can imagine her excitement at trying to get rid of me. So yeah, excellent. Thank you very genuinely, really appreciate it.
No worries. I hope some of that was useful, and you probably have to go away and think about it a little bit to like take on.
Yeah. It genuinely scares me a little bit, like getting this clinical about food, but I think I need to.
Yeah. Excellent. But the thing is we're not like, and the idea is not to be super clinical about food. The idea is still variety in what you're eating foods that you enjoy, and tracking to the best of your ability. And I'm not going to give you 2,000 calories to go away and eat, and you're there starving and you're obsessing over what can I eat for 2,000 calories. It's not going to be like that. You should be able to eat and fuel yourself well and not be hungry, especially in this first bit as we're just trying to establish some consistency. You shouldn't feel like super stressed or clinical about it, and if you do start to feel like that, definitely say, because it means that we're like, if you become too obsessive with it or something, it means we're probably like barking up the wrong tree, and we might need to try a different method if that is how it feels once you're kind of in it and doing it.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'll just do a video outro. Okay, so thank you. I hope everybody got something from that. I hope it's come across that it's not all about the weight. There's a lot more factors at play, a lot more important things. Fran does have 2 Instagrams, so I'm going to leave them both down below. One of which is her nutrition page, and one of which is her triathlon page. So she's it's Fran Tries Tri. Fran has moved to triathlon from CrossFit, weightlifting, etc. So really interesting journey. So even if you're not interested in using Fran's services, please do check her out and give her a follow down below. It all helps for those sweet Saurine deals. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below, and I will see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for probably another day of no triathlon training, but we'll make do. See you later.
Cool. Thanks, Dan.